and welcome to round 8 of Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm Nate Price in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen. Here we're looking at a match between Chuck Lancaster and his Azorius Devotion deck and 4th-ranked Shahar Shenhar and his green-white aggro deck, both players sitting at 6 and 1. Shahar is also the current reigning World Magic champion, so
not an easy thing to do.
Not at all, especially at such a tender young age.
Yes. The youngest player playing in the World Championship.
So both players have opened with 2 drops. Shahar is open with a Voice of Resurgence card that we made mention of being quite strong in this Supreme Verdict and Sphinx's Revelation laden field. Lancaster on the other side is opted for the ubiquitous Frostburn weird, something that we're going to see quite a bit of.
Fleece main line coming down there.
Not quite a monster yet, but the Nymean Lion might make his way to big time before too much longer. Ooh, that is a pretty looking Night Veil Spectre.
Hey, he has the promo version of Night Veil Spectre there.
All right. Time to wrestle.
Yeah, this Selesnya Charm, pretty good that Shahar has here, but he may just want to use Banisher Priest and get this Night Veil Spectre off the table. Then again, he can also just bash with both of his creatures here and then see what happens. And if he needs the Selesnya Charm, then he can Selesnya Charm, and if not, then he can just cast the Banisher Priest.
So we've talked a bunch this weekend so far about the power behind Night Veil Spectre. How strong is Night Veil Spectre in a matchup like this where you're not going to be able to cast any cards in the opponent's deck until you hit lands that allow you to? Is it obviously diminished in value, but it's still a powerful
it still
card?
gives you 3 devotion. Obviously, Night Veil Spectre is going to be much better against the the other blue or black devotion-based decks because then you get a lot of value out of it. And against control decks especially, it's really strong because it's something that they absolutely 100% have to deal with before you start generating card advantage with it.
Yeah.
But even against these decks, if it connects and you get a land, that's pretty awesome.
Okay, cool. Well, Shahar's opted for the aggro plan, sending both of his creatures in, and Lancaster has decided to go ahead and block 1 apiece, giving Shahar the opportunity to use Selesnya Charm to pump his Voice of Resurgence up and over, killing that Night Veil Spectre. So it won't get to guard that land, but he also doesn't get to force through too much more damage. So basically turn the Selesnya Charm into a removal spell.
Which seems quite good.
Can't complain. All right, Lancaster goes ahead and plays that Hallowed Fountain, taking himself down to 17 in the process in order to get the white mana needed to use Detention Sphere to rid himself of the Fleece main line before it gets too dangerous. Putting it in a zoo before it can become a monster.
Putting it to the zoo before it becomes a monster. I like that.
Gotta cage the beast. All right, so Shenhar is now faced with the potential of attacking, chooses not to, not wanting to just randomly lose it to the ability to pump that Frostburn Weird. He's got an Advent of the Worm in his hand, something that you all guarantee is going to come down at end step here, which will finally give him a creature capable of getting up and over that Frostburn Weird on the other side of the table.
Yeah, both players pretty low on gas at this point. They've just been trading cards 1 for 1. Both of them playing some good spells. It's looking like Shahar is definitely in the lead, though. That Banisher Priest pretty strong here. And the thing is that it's going to be hard for Charles to really interact on Shahar's turn, which is what he's going to want to do. And yeah, it just seems like Shahar's in a pretty good place here.
So Shahar
grinding it out with his green-white deck.
Yep. Opts against the Banisher Priest, likely trying to avoid committing too much to the board in lieu of, he doesn't want to get hit by a Supreme Verdict.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure how worried he would be of Supreme Verdict in this matchup because I guess Charles could have a couple copies of that. But I think the major issue here is that he really wants to hold the Banisher Priest in case Master of Waves comes down.
Seems reasonable.
And he also drew the Smiter, which just it's just a better card for the play, for the spot.
And the fact that he did play the Smiter definitely indicates that he probably wasn't looking towards playing around that Supreme Verdict. And it turns out there are no copies of Supreme Verdict in this deck. Looks like Lancaster's big sweeping removal spell is Cyclonic Rift, something that's fairly standard out of these Devotion decks. The ability to power it out with Nykthos is pretty strong. You can usually get to overload that card. All right, so Jace, Architect of Thought, comes down and allows Lancaster to use a mini Factor Fiction, shipping 2 lands back in favor of a Bident of Thassa.
Yeah, Bident not great in this spot, but tremendously strong in general against the green decks in most situations. So
A second Banisher Priest in Shahar's hand is going to give him an opportunity to finally clear the path, giving him a free shot at Jace and a pretty strong shot up at the
yeah, I mean, he can
Lancaster's
either
life
put
total.
Charles down to 1 or put Charles at 3 and also kill the Jace, which I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, looks like he went with the latter plan. So now, without any board sweep available to him, Lancaster is going to be in a tight spot. And tight enough spot that he's just going to go ahead and pack it up. So
Charles Lancaster loses game 1 to the current world champion and the 4th ranked player in the world, Shahar Shenhar.
there you see Shahar, hailing from Israel. He also spent time growing up in Sacramento, California. That's where he picked up the game. He said his first the first game of Magic that he played, like he basically just fell instantly into competitive Magic, picked up fairies in its heyday as his first deck. So if you're going to get started, why not pick one of the more complicated decks you could have possibly learned at the time in order to figure the game out, but got bit by the competitive bug and fell really hard.
Yeah, and he played at the same local shop as people like Luis Scott Vargas and David Ochoa, Josh Hutter Layton. Many of these names still on the top 25 pro rankings
Oh,
list.
schmucks.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, he had some good teachers, and he has quickly propelled himself to the very highest levels of the game.
Yes, he's also a big fan of turning disco balls on inside of taxi cabs on their way to events. It was a lot of chatter yesterday on.
I've ridden a taxi with him. This
You
didn't
never did that?
happen.
Oh, it happened to me yesterday. There was a lot of chatter on social media about how anybody who was on Shahar's flight into Dallas was clearly going to get here because there's no way you can run as good as him. Consequently, I was fortunate enough to be on his flight, which is why I'm here today. I'm 100% giving my presence here. Full credit to that goes to Shahar. So thanks, man. Appreciate it, buddy.
Was the disco ball being used on plane in flight?
No. It was used on the taxi ride from the airport to the convention center. And
In that ice storm?
Yeah, and
Oh, man,
the best part was he kept confusing him because the lights would move and almost flash, and they were blue lights, and so he just kept looking behind us, thinking that we were going to get pulled over at any point because he was confusing himself with the disco balls that he had himself turned on. It was really funny.
That is very funny.
So let's take a look at these sideboards and see what we could potentially bringing in here. Let's look first at Lancaster's sideboard. In this matchup against this creature-based deck Shahar has, looks like those claustrophobias are probably going to see some work, as probably will the domestication.
Yep.
Ratchet Bomb seems pretty reasonable against this deck as well, right?
Definitely. Bring that in 100%.
Those verdicts we mentioned he didn't have game 1. You can definitely expect to see games 2 and 3 because he's got 3 copies in his sideboard that I guarantee are going to make their way in. And
Is Simic Manipulator the 0/1 evolve who steals creatures?
it is.
I like bringing that in.
I am a big fan of bringing that in.
Yeah, I mean, Shahar's main deck has no way to deal with that card. Post board, Shahar does have Last Breath.
Yeah.
He also has a lot of different options. He has Celestial Flare, Plummet, Mistcutter Hydra, Last Breath, all these cards that could be pretty reasonable in a matchup like this.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely interested to see. I mean,
But again, his opponent has a ton of cards he wants to bring in too. Multiple Claustrophobias, Domestication, Ratchet Bomb, Supreme Verdict, and Simic Manipulator.
yeah.
So it should be interesting. I'm excited to see how their decks end up looking post board because both of them have so much in the way of sideboard options, and they're both playing pretty unique decks. The Blue-White Devotion deck is something we've seen on and off. It's a take on the Pro Tour winning Mono Blue deck.
Yep.
But this version seems pretty different. So 3 Sphinx's Revelations,
It has a bit more top end, a bit more, I don't want to say controlling bent to it, because it really doesn't. Like, the deck is still the same basic shell you get from Devotion, but yeah, it does top out at those Sphinx's Revelation. I mean, the main reason it's touching white is for those Revelations and the Detention Spheres. Plus, you get that sweet sideboard of being able to bring in the Supreme Verdicts, which we talked already about being so powerful. And it looks like he has the ability in these matchups here where he doesn't feel that he's the more aggressive deck to sideboard into more of a deck that is close. It's closer to the blue-white control decks that we've seen. It's not going to go quite that far, but he does have the ability, especially because he's got the Aetherlings. Like, his deck can put quite a controlling front up against this green-white deck from Shahar.
Yeah, definitely. Post board, he can basically become a blue-white control deck.
Which will be very interesting to see. What do you think comes out? I mean, Bident of Thassa tends to get worse in the creature-based decks, right? Where you'd rather have Jace at that 4-drop slot. Especially if he's going to be bringing in, like, Supreme Verdicts, makes his own creatures a little bit less, shall we say, good.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised he's playing Bidents without the 1-drops.
Good point.
Yeah, no Judges Familiars, no Cloudfin Raptors. Those are really the best cards with Bident, and those cards are the reason why Bident is usually very, very strong against any sort of green deck, because you just fly over and you draw a ton of cards, and then you win.
Well, game 2 has started with Shahar Shenhar dropping an Experiment 1, which was immediately locked down by a Tidebinder Mage, which Lancaster follows up with a Thassa, now only 2 blue mana symbols away from being a Devotion. Gotten a good look at Shenhar's hand. He's got one of his sideboard cards, that Mistcutter Hydra you can see at the front right there. He also has an Ajani. Looks like that Hydra is going to make an appearance immediately as a 2-drop. Or sorry, as a 2/2. Getting him for a quick 2 points of damage to even the life totals up at 18 apiece. So he also has an Ajani Color of the Pride in his hand. I think I saw a Banisher Priest, or what is that white card?
Gift of Orzhova.
That is a Gift of Orzhova, okay.
Yeah. So, Gift of Orzhova, pretty awesome with Mistcutter Hydra against these mono blue decks.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty solid combo.
Yeah, you do a lot of work really fast with that.
Best part is it also gives him an opportunity to... Okay, the Biden stayed in.
Yep. And
wow, that's a pretty big swing right there.
Yeah,
Attack
7
for
points
7
of damage
and 2 cards.
It's huge.
And the best part is even if Shahar decides at any point that he wants to go ahead and leave that Mistcutter Hydra back on defense, he's going to be able to get around it, or Lancaster's going to be able to get around it with Thassa's ability.
That's true.
So let's
Gift
see.
of Orzhova, probably the best line that he has, but still not the most exciting of lines, because he's going to get that Gift of Orzhova down on his guy, and then where do you go from there, you know?
Shahar has a Pelucranos in his hand, which he could potentially use in a turn to fight the Tidebinder Mage and knock him out of Devotion. But
and that's definitely a line. I don't hate that. I mean, it seems like it might be better than any of his other options right now. Like, maybe Charles just has nothing in hand. Yeah. Which, I mean, is pretty unlikely considering he's got 5 cards and he's about to draw 2 more, but maybe. Yeah. So you're saying there's a chance.
Exactly. Yeah. Putting that 5/5 front up is, I mean, it basically also forces Charles to use his entire turn to get through for any damage. He's going to have to activate Thassa to actually get past that defensive front that Shahar will have.
And, I mean, that's definitely true, but he'll be getting in for 7 and Shahar's at 11. So even, you know...
What game do you want to play? Like, does that set him up to... Because if anytime that he takes that line, he's not giving himself the window of opportunity to cast that gift and start regaining a life. So this is why Shahar is taking so long to think about what he's going to do on this turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard turn.
Yep. What do you see as the most likely outcome?
Pelucranos.
Especially given that it's in his hand right now.
Well, yeah, but...
Yeah, okay.
I think it's the only thing that gives him a realistic way of winning the game.
All right, so the Hungry Hippo hits the table, and now he's got a nice defensive front up that's going to force Chuck to make a decision as to what he's going to do for his turn, how he's going to spend his mana. Is he going to advance his board or just advance his attack plan? Well, we've seen that he at least has one more double blue card, so the fight you to keep you out of devotion is not going to work. But I mean, at least that will make his Polukranos large enough that it will force Lancaster to use Thassa's ability to. Oh wow, that shrine didn't. That Nykthos is incredibly good right here.
Yeah, Nykthos. So currently Charles has access to 7 blue mana here,
giving him the ability to not only get through for a lot of damage, but advance his board. And that claustrophobia, that's
and
another.
now he still has 4 more, so he can make both of his guys unblockable. Charge in.
That was
Shahar.
a turn.
Gonna fall down to 4.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are a little unsure as to what makes Nykthos so good, that was basically a front row seat. I mean, the things that he got to do on that turn doesn't seem like very much, but I mean, he knocked Shahar down to 4 and has put him in some serious hurt. This Banisher Priest he just drew, though, is going to do some serious work. Gives him an opportunity to take out Thassa. Yeah. Now,
his Mistcutter Hydra can actually hold down the board now. He might actually go ahead and play another copy of Mistcutter Hydra. I don't hate that.
Just
playing as a 1/1. I mean, you're at 4.
I think he was
it
just
doesn't
trying to
really matter that much because you're not going to get a chance to cast it anyway with what's in your hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that play.
Okay. All right, defense enabled. Well, let's see what he's got. Oh, Cyclonic Rift. That's pretty good. Oh, and another Thassa. Yeah, that's a thing. Okay, and yep, enough damage to, or enough mana to make his Frostburn Weird unblockable and pump it up for lethal damage. So Charles Lancaster is going to even things up at 1 apiece, taking us to a 3rd game against Shahar Shenhar's green-white deck.
Yeah, there we saw Charles Lancaster with a really nice draw. You know, the Tidebinder Mage on turn 2 for full value, tapping down that Experiment 1. On turn 3, he's got a Thassa, and on turn 4, he plays a Bident. And that's what the mono blue deck wants to do. It just wants to out-tempo you like that. Like, if you can play those 3 cards in succession of each other, it's just unbelievable.
Watching the blue deck snowball like that is great. And that's one of the reasons, like, I was unsure at the beginning of the season. There was a lot of talk about which of the gods is going to make the most constructed impact, and I think it was BDM who was really, really high on Thassa, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not. We'll see. And then come to Pro Tours, like the fact that like the scry is not a non-issue, and the unblockability is definitely something that's value. It's the fact that she's a 3/3, or sorry, a 3-mana creature effectively. That really just makes her so powerful. Like, she gets to come down on turn 3, and then, as you said, when those 4 drops with 2 blue mana hit the table, she's almost always.
It's pretty unbelievable that she costs 3 mana.
Yeah.
Like, they give it to blue.
Yeah. You know, blue, the mana of, it's the color of inexpensive 5-power creatures, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
She's a blue woolly Thoktar that's also a think tank that's also can also make your creatures unblockable.
Yeah, you were trying to think of a card. I was too. It's cool. Like, we can back out of it. No, it's cool. Don't bother. There's no point in continuing to think about it. But yeah, so we learned a little bit about the player's sideboard plans that game, at least for the current play draw scenario. That's another thing that's been very interesting for me in this format. Is like the decisions on how sideboarding works based on whether you play or draw is actually very relevant because there's so much that's actually tempo based in this format.
Yeah.
Like, you see a lot of people like changing their sideboard plans up after game 2 going into game 3 based on who wins, who loses. So I like a little bit of play like that, a little next level game, something that as the players walk through it, walk you through it, and you get to understand it. It's one of those high level things that makes the game very interesting to me. But we did see both the Bidents and Cyclonic Rift stayed in for Chuck that last game.
Cyclonic Rift's definitely staying in because of Advent.
Yeah, yeah. So we got to see Claustrophobia make its way in. Didn't get to see anything else, but we know at least those are in the deck this time.
Well, maybe not. I mean, he could be going for a control route.
Yeah, yeah.
It is game 3. It's a different game than game 2. He's not on the play anymore.
Yep.
Running over a green-white deck by tempoing them out of the game is not so. It's not so easy when you're on the draw.
Yep. So this might be one of those exact examples we talked about, where there's an alteration in sideboard strategy between whether you're playing or whether you're drawing.
Definitely.
Yep. We saw that Shahar brought in a large number of cards. Those Mistcutter Highs and those Gifted Orzhovas, which we were pretty sure were going to come in. They hit the table, and they were definitely a factor in that game. But unfortunately, they weren't enough. That he never quite had the opportunity, due to being on the draw, in order to assemble, Voltron and keep him in that game.
Yeah, and I mean he had an opportunity on turn 4. He could have made a 3/3 lifelink that his opponent just would have no way to interact with at all, and that was not good enough.
Yeah, you still like the line that he took that game, going to Pelucranos on that turn instead of going with the.
I mean, it was
gift?
certainly worse than playing the gift, given the scenario, but he doesn't know what's in his opponent's hands.
Fair.
And I think given the grand scheme of random, it did give him the greatest chance to win.
Yeah.
So.
Which is what you're looking at. You're looking at
Yeah.
what you think the best line is, not based on what your opponent actually has, but what you expect them to have, over a long set of things. Like, you can't predict exactly what's in your opponent's hand. So to make the best possible line for you in all circumstances. Shahar went down to 6 cards. And
Yeah,
does this
it's
look
looking
like
like
a
he's
hand
gonna
that's
have to
go down to
mulligan.
5?
Yeah, he doesn't have any white mana, and
Yep, there it is.
Yep. So Shahar going down to 5 cards here.
On the play.
Generally not where you want to be.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen players win in Pro Tours off of a, Mold of 4 before. That Martel versus Ephro match was pretty insane. But,
Yeah.
I mean, your odds obviously diminish significantly the more
Oh,
cards
yeah.
you throw back into your deck. No one's joking.
I mean, I'm
and
only into
saying-
4 in limited at the most recent Pro Tour and won that game.
Really?
Yeah.
Humble brag.
Pretty awesome.
Martel would be proud.
Well, basically, my opponent didn't do anything until turn 3 or 4 when he just started casting Vaporkins, and didn't really do much besides cast Vaporkins in the whole game. And I think he cast 2 Insatiable Harpies and 3 Vaporkins that game. And my mulligan to 4 involved me playing Bow of Nylea on turn 3.
Oh, good game. Shoot you out of the sky. Shoot you out of the sky. Thanks for the break. I'll gain some life.
I felt bad for that guy. He ended up 0-3ing the draft, but in the 3rd round of the draft, in the 0-2 bracket, he played against the guy who had 2 Elspeths in his draft deck. Imagine you're 0-2 at the Pro Tour.
Nice deck.
Play against the guy with double Elspeth.
All right, looks like Shahar's
That's
got to keep
brutal,
a full
man.
hand. He did bring in plummets as well. More answers to that Night Veil Spectre. All right, he does have a Fleecemane Lion too, so looks like he will be able to shock himself. Okay, yeah. So he doesn't shock himself, instead opting to let it come into play tap and plays a Soldier of the Pantheon. So
I like how he has the new and the old Temple Gardens.
it allows us to have our discussion. I think I might like the old Temple Garden better too.
I think you're right. I'm going to have to go with the old Temple Garden.
But I don't know. A lot of them. It's tough to say. A lot of it's just perspective. So, all right. So he gets on the table with another creature, dropping that Fleecemane Lion and gaining himself a life. Can't forget those triggers, kids.
Never forget your triggers, kids. It's important.
Yeah. Judges yell at you. All right. This is gonna be when Lancaster starts to get his stuff going. I see. Let's see. That's a Master of Waves in his hand, I think.
Ooh. It's a pretty good one.
It's pretty strong against this green-white deck. Shahar does have 3 copies of Last Breath in his sideboard that I would be very surprised if they didn't come in against that card, knowing his opponent's playing Devotion. But we'll see. So Claustrophobias do indeed stay in the second time.
So we're not on a control plan here.
Nope. All right. And Shahar is...
I'm pretty surprised at that attack there.
Did you expect a Mistcutter Hydra for 1?
I did expect a Mistcutter Hydra for 1. I don't think you're going to have an opportunity to play it otherwise. When you draw your third land, you're going to cast Smiter.
Yeah. All right, so there's a Jace Architect of Thought, which immediately gets plussed. It's spelling some bad news for Shahar unless he can start to pour some more on the table. Well, it looks like another Soldier of the Pantheon is going to provide him at least another way to keep Jace. He'll actually start to be able to make headway on Jace instead of just plunking down the one counter that was previously gained. This is not a... Shahar's going to need to draw that third land because he's got the... Is that a... Loxodon, Smiter. What's the bottom card?
Loxodon, Smiter, Plummet, Gift of Orshova.
Okay,
yeah. And Mist Cutter Hydra.
All right, and there's the Master coming down and making 3 critters to follow alongside. No, 5 critters. I forgot about the Claustrophobia.
Yeah.
That's pretty massive.
That is pretty massive.
That's going to be a real problem for Shahar.
Yeah, he's going to need to find a last breath, and soon.
This is one of the reasons Master is so strong. Like it is a deal with me now card. Like if you don't have an answer to it immediately, it will kill you.
It will.
And you will die.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of those situations. That's why I like Claustrophobia. Like it's just like it and Domestication. Like they provide a beneficial effect for you, and then provide an additional beneficial effect considering your deck's playing with the Devotion strategy. Making so many elementals that he doesn't even have enough tokens to cover them all. That's first world problems here.
Yes. It certainly is.
So the Sea Ponies looking to potentially smash over. I mean, it's not lethal damage, but it is going to severely pair Shahar's hand at this point. He draws that a Polukranos as his card for the turn, so... All right, Mistcutter Hydra, better late than never, buddy.
Yeah, now this board is just so rough. Shahar, that mulligan to 5, he really has been stunted throughout the entirety of this game. And
Domestication right there.
These mono blue decks just excel a lot against other creature decks, especially aggressive creature decks, and we're witnessing that right now.
Yep.
As we have time and time again. All these aggressive decks always think that they beat the blue deck. Everybody always says they beat it.
I mean, that's kind of the way Magic's gone in the history, right? Blue decks, their foil has always been the aggressive deck. It's really weird when this time the blue deck is the aggressive deck.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought that blue creature-based decks would dominate combat against other decks? Not something that was on my radar. Domestication for good measure. Soldier of the Pantheon fights for a different god. All right. And now it is time to battle. Well, I guess first we're going to +1. Let's turn the Sea Pony sideways. All right. Yeah, make sure we kill it. That's right. Got to make sure the Sea Ponies stay in play. You can get rid of that.
You get rid of that
promo card,
ugly promo token.
Screw Sorin. Banisher Priest mocking Shahar's inability to draw a third land. I would be very surprised to see this game go on more than another turn.
Well, I mean, it's certainly going to go on for at least,
Another turn?
one more rotation.
Yeah.
But it's pretty unlikely that it will go much further than that.
It might not even. Tidebinder Mage, Frostburn Weird, and Land. That Nykthos in play.
More stuff.
Look at how much blue mana Chuck has access to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I love that show so much. Oh, man. Is that the electric company?
Yeah.
Man, that dates us.
We're old. It is
It's
Sesame
Sesame Street? Okay. All right. The fact that we were even able to say the electric company, know what it was, and have seen it. You think Shahar was alive when that show was on? I don't think so.
I do not think so. I don't think he was alive when that episode of Sesame Street was on either.
No, I'm 100% positive he wasn't. Lancaster just goes ahead and plays a Frostburn Weird that he got off of that Jace split. All right. Well, Shahar has that third land now, which is going to allow him to cast the Banisher Priest and get rid of the bulk of Lancaster's army. But, man, is it still going to be an uphill climb for him to get back into this. Down at 7. Plus, if that guy ever goes away, the Master comes back with even more sea ponies than he left with.
Many, many sea ponies.
His stable is filled with sea ponies.
And there is a detention sphere in the hands of Charles Lancaster.
I wonder if we're even going to get to see the sea ponies hit play, or if the second that hits the table, Shahar's just going to pack it up. I mean, I suppose he could always draw an additional Banisher Priest on the next turn, so got to at least see it through. But this is not a very strong position for him to be in. All right. Detention sphere comes down.
And do you want to know how many tokens he's going to get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
12 tokens.
12 tokens.
Come to me, sea ponies. I really want to call that guy Master of Sea Ponies from this point on. Like, screw Master of Waves.
Well, the sea ponies are waves. That's what they are.
I know they're waves. Oh, just stacking them up. No, you gotta line those bad boys up in front of your opponent. Let him know what he's getting into.
Yeah.
Although it can be pretty imposing to see a stack, a half-inch thick of sea ponies coming right at you.
It's generally frowned upon to make it rain tokens when you cast your Master of Waves.
They're made of water.
Generally, yeah.
Although, here in Dallas, it's more like make it ice. Make it freezing rain.
Waves of ice? That's dangerous, man.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. There have been people who've died because of that. People just throwing ice at them. You ever get hit with an ice ball as a kid? Like, you're out having a snowball fight and some little jerk decides he's going to pack the inside of it with a little bit of ice and then throw the snow around it. Those things hurt, man.
Yeah, man, I think that's how I got my first black eye.
That's hurtful. Why do people do that? It's so mean. All right, well, this split is going to involve another detention sphere, which is likely going to spell the end of anything that Shahar would want to do. I'd be very surprised if he went for anything. Oh, he goes for the other pile. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, at this point.
Lock it up.
He can also just dump all those cards because they're all blue cards, and he has a Nykthos that taps for an obscenely large amount of blue mana.
Yeah, plus, I mean, with the other Jays, you can just cast it and use the -2 ability again. All right, yeah, that's going to do it.
That is going
Shahar
to be
has
the
seen
end.
enough. The Sea Ponies have done their job. That unfortunate mulligan to 5 resulting in that halt on 2 mana